How are you guys? You guys feeling okay? Underprepared from Rolf. That's okay. I spent my entire life feeling under. Um, yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky, this stuff. One of my I had this the slide deck when I go through today, I had reviewed by we always review everything internally by it's part of the process here at Inversa. And my colleague was like, how are these people meant to get this lean canvas done in 25 minutes? It's impossible. I'm like, yeah, it is basically impossible, but that's the whole point. It's like, that's why it's like this. And when we've done boot camps, like proper, like in-person 1 week boot camps, it is intense. So, because people are put under the pressure. And I actually looked over one of my old notes, and it's like, the objective was to have a lived experience of entrepreneurship. Over it was called CEO for the weekend, and by the end of it, people are like this, like like deer in the headlights, because that's kind of what it feels like sometimes. All right, cool. So we've had underprepared, good, fresh, cold but enthusiastic, excited, ready. Okay, brilliant, brilliant. Well, welcome everyone. We're in seminar 5 of 6. Insanity. How did we get here? This is crazy. I'm gonna bring this up and we'll get cracking. Thank you, Henry, for recording. Welcome everybody. I'm feeling better because the last like 3 days, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I felt horrific. So I'm feeling a lot better. And that's just because when you have kids in childcare, if you've ever had kids and they've been in childcare, you'll know this. You get sick the entire time. If you haven't had kids, get ready. If you ever have them, you're going to be sick a lot in the first 3 years. But it's brilliant at the same time. And it's brilliant at the same time. There's no buts. It's always a yes and. Okay, cool. Let's dive in. Firstly, big thank you for everyone being here. I actually really look forward to our little sessions on a Wednesday, and we've got a really core group of super awesome people who are diving in every week. So first, I want to say thank you for being here. It's wonderful to have you here. It makes life so much more fun. So thank you. What we're going to do is get into how we pull this together, and we're going to do something different today. But I'm going to start with we've started our circle words. We've actually done that, unless anyone wants to add anything in. So we've done our circle words, which is how do we feel. I'm going to set the stopwatch so I can see how long I'm running for. But I'm going to start with this 2 schools of thought on how do we take a product to market. And I put in Pexels. I put in person thinking, and this is what I came up with. I was like, this guy. I thought it's obviously like a staged shoot, but I really liked it because he's like half Steve Jobs with the roll neck, but he's also half like super businessman with the wool sort of, overcoat. But he's looking at a computer that has no branding on it. So I have no idea where he works. So I kind of thought this is kind of like, it kind of does actually really well personify what we're trying to talk about here, which is there are these 2 major schools of thought on how do you take a product to market. And this is the classic one from Henry Ford. And if I'd asked people what they wanted, they'd have said faster horses. And this is, don't ask people what they want, just build it. And he was right, to be honest. And this is some of the funniest photos I've seen of this stuff, is that when people, when the automobile was being built, people would actually still use their horses because the engine wasn't working and they couldn't get it serviced, it wasn't working properly. Or they'd even do the same thing with their chauffeur and put them on I'm just going to shut my computer over here. They would put their chauffeur in the front of it and pull the car in the horse. Obviously, this is not what Henry Ford had in mind. But his point was, you can't go out and find out what people want because no one knows what they actually want if you want to build a new future. And he was right. And there's an amazing transition picture I'll pull up next time about this. And this is very much going back to our guy sitting looking at his computer. This is very much the Steve Jobs approach. You can't design products by focus groups because people don't know what they want until you show it to them. This is a wonderful way of thinking about a product. They know what they don't like. Yeah, that's right, Daniel. They definitely know what they don't like. as anyone's, when you launch a product, people love to complain more than they love to praise something. So in 2008, I was writing my PhD. I was at Oxford and I was working on carbon markets, and I was like, okay, this is I'm here doing this thing. It's really exciting. I love it. And I had this email, I can still remember it come through, and it said environmental.com on the top of it. And I was like, okay. And I opened it up and it said, hello, my name's Charlie. I'd like to talk to you about a startup thing I'm working on, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, cool. I meet this guy. So this guy turns up and he makes me sign an NDA straight away. I'm like, okay, all right, it's interesting. I didn't even know what an NDA was. Like, I'm studying critical human geography, and we start, and he goes, I've got this project called Green Star that I'm, signing the NDA, and it's all about ratings agencies. And so he said, I want you to come in and be our chief carbon analyst and figure out how we can basically discount offsets according to their quality. And because what we're trying to do is provide a rating system for corporates so we can judge one corporate against another. So this was 2008, so it's a long time ago. No, we had the Carbon Disclosure Project, which was getting all this kind of data in on emissions. We basically didn't really have scope 3 really. It was a thing, but it wasn't really well known. There was no kind of proper good rating between different companies. And what he wanted to do is do it at a brand level, not at a product level. There's a bit of product stuff going on, but it's too complicated. It was a great idea. And he is fantastic. And he went around and he got NDA signed by loads of people. He got some really fantastic people on. The chair of the board was Sir David King, the chief scientist for the UK. Leonardo DiCaprio was like the brand ambassador. Like it was this thing going off, and I was just doing my PhD, and my now wife, you probably saw in the background a little bit earlier, her and I were just going out with each other, and I was like, yeah, I'm doing this thing. I remember being at a Jay-Z concert trying to sign an NDA on a really crappy phone back in the day, and I thought, oh, this is it. This thing is going to be crazy. Like we're gonna, this exit agreement was like, if we get more than 12 million pounds in the exit, we're gonna, we make an extra bunch percentage each. It was just brilliant. I was like, wow, this guy spent like 70,000 pounds on patents, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the aim was to get it to Google. And to get it into Google, and Google would have this thing, and they'd have the green star rating. And what it meant was when you went onto search, you'd have these green stars along the bottom saying, if I want to fly Lufthansa versus American Airlines, which one is the more carbon friendly of the two to go with? And so so we got this and we worked on it for like pretty hard for a year and a half or so. And I was kind of doing it, it was all equity, all sweat equity, no money, just that. And then I was doing a postdoc, my visiting scholarship in UC Santa Cruz in California. And I got a phone call from Charlie saying, right, that's it. The pitch is on at Google. Meet me in Mountain View. We're going to Google to pitch. And he'd already been flying around with Larry and Sergey in their private jet with Forrest Whitaker, and randomly, I don't know why, he was in the jet as well. All this weird stuff. And I was like, Jesus, we're going to do this. We're going to sell this thing. We're going to be millionaires. And I'm like, not even 30. This is going to be amazing. And as I sit in my tiny little apartment in UC Santa Cruz with, barely a bathroom. And so we go there and we pitch and we do all this kind of stuff and meet the head of Google Earth and blah, blah, blah. And it's going super well. And we come away and they're like, at the end of the day, they're like, okay, we really like this. This is great. This aligns, blah, blah, blah. All we want to do is, can you just go back, get a little bit of traction from the market, come back to us, and we'll talk about what it looks like for the acquisition. We went away and we tried to get some traction in the market, as in people to pay for it. No one would pay for it. Not a thing. And we tried some more. We pushed it in different ways, and we recalibrated it, and we went, and in the end, the whole thing sort of fizzled out. We didn't have any investment. There was no more money to pay. There's no more money to pay for anyone. We're all on sweat equity, and by a year, 2.5, I've moved to Melbourne. Other people have moved on. Our COO had a baby, and it just fell apart. And it was one of those incredible experiences where you look back on it, you think, wow, it was literally this close. And if we just had even 2 or 3 corporates sign up and say, we're willing to pay a small subscription fee for this, or someone turn up and pay, we're willing to pay for that rating, we'd have sold it to Google for a lot of money. So it's a cool story to tell now. It was painful at the time, but it just showed we had that. And our CEO, Charlie, great guy, super charismatic. He had that Steve Jobs mentality. We're just going to build this. And I remember him saying to me, Adam, I said, these models are getting really complicated. I'm like, I get it, but like, I'm writing them for you. It's no problem. And he's like, Adam, we're going to nuance the F out of this so no one understands it and they're just going to buy it. That was his line. And of course, it didn't work. So this takes me to the next part. And I'd never done real startup stuff before. I'd just been a consultant and things, is taking it to this Steve Blank and the Lean Canvas. And Steve Blank is really important because he says completely the opposite. It's all about getting out of the building and talking to customers. If we had, what we were most worried about at Greenstar was competition and people stealing the idea. That took up 80% of the discussion. No, 50% of the discussion. The other 40% was on product, but of anything in the market, we just worried about competition. We didn't worry about traction. And so I've kind of come around to the point where I don't think either of those are completely correct. If you want to change the world, if you look at Tesla, for example, like he did take steps, obviously PayPal and a way into it, but Elon Musk had and you talked about this, Brian, the other day, like this, he's got his vision is the biggest vision of all, right? And he's going to change the world with sheer willpower. But if you look at the majority of startups that go out there, they're not the ones that make it through to even a stage where you can even consider yourself having a company. So get out of the building and talk to customers. Number one reason that startups fail is building something that nobody wants. Now, this data is from probably 4 years ago. And I just recently updated it, looked at it. So first one was building something that nobody wants, but this is from CB Insights from last year. And their top one, 38%, was ran out of cash, failed to raise new capital. And the second one, no market need. And so you can pretty much look at the top one as part of the second one. Because if you've got traction in the market and you're doing really well and there's a problem being solved, chances are you're going to get some money back in to keep going because someone will see that you're doing well. But no market need is the biggest one. So you build a product that no one wants. I'm just stopping to see if there's any question. Is this even real? Do you mean the story, Danielle?
Oh, I just meant flying in Forrest Whitaker's jet. Like,
Yeah, no, it's true. It was so
I thought
weird.
maybe the story was going to turn into like the Theranos story where the CEO was like pretending so hard that it actually became real.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, that's a great story. No, this was real. This was legit. I said to him, like, why is Forrest Whitaker in the airplane? He had no idea. It was for the Zeitgeist conference that Google holds, and that year it was on climate change, and so maybe why he was there. But anyway, he's a nice guy apparently. So anyway, this is where we're at. So please test with customers. All right. Today we're going to do differently than we've done before. We'll talk about that in a second.
I have a
Yeah,
question
sure, Hamza.
on the same point. So there are products that customers want, but they don't want to pay. So what to do about that bit? Like this is something they do want to see the ratings as far as the end users are concerned, but they don't want to pay to get those ratings.
Yeah, so we either did one of two things wrong. Firstly, we didn't find the right person the company was going to pay for it. So we hadn't worked out what the right business model was, like who really had the pain point. And the second part was we didn't believe hard enough in finding where the money was. If people are not prepared to pay, there is no customer. Someone's got to pay money. That's it. So it wasn't burning enough problem. If not a burning enough problem, they're not going to pay. And that's it really. Yeah. Even not for profits, charities have to get paid. So it's about the money. Yeah. So what we do is when we're going through a lean canvas, and then we're going to do a lean canvas live. So thank you all for your feedback. So this is the feedback. Really appreciate you giving it to us. This is what we've adapted and changed what we're doing today. So what's going well? Formalizing the ideation process, lots of content, practical activities, and it's pretty interesting. Thank you for that positive stuff. Okay, what needs to be done better? This is more important. We need more time. Yes, I get that. This is hard and it's very intense. Q&A at the beginning so we can go deeper. Brilliant, coming up. Teamwork and group assignments. Okay, that's a challenging one. I know it's hard. Normally we do this in teams just because the structure of this way this is set up, we're not arriving in teams. I'd actually prefer if we were in teams. It's just kind of been challenging to do it, but I agree with you. And it's something that I can go back to the organizers of the whole thing and talk about. And happy to get more feedback on that as well, but thank you. More work in advance and discuss. Okay, we tried to address that a little bit this week with the Lean Canvases, more one-on-ones. Yes, that's great. I know it's challenging because we will have time constraints and more feedback from each other. Again, we had a bit of feedback that was, we want more peer feedback, but we also realize people don't want to give peer feedback because this is also a competition. So this is kind of weird tension in this one. Having said that, you are all, the people everyone who's on the call right now are working their hardest to create the best piece of work to go into this competition. There may be someone else out there who does an incredible application. We don't know about them. That's okay. But you guys are definitely doing the hard yards to make it the very best you can. So I definitely see this in this collaborative phase at the moment. And so more peer feedback for each other, we will try and integrate. It's just a bit challenging at this point in time. Okay, cool. Any other feedback or comments you'd like to give right now? Anything else that we've missed here? All right, cool. No worries. Thank you for joining. And I also see some friends I haven't seen before. I say hello. David. Hello. Yes, Hamza.
Just this one small feedback. Is it possible if you can talk to Melbourne government to keep this portal open for us? Because all of the work that we are doing is here, the Disco and the Slack community. That would be great if they let it live. Like,
yeah,
at least for this year till the next competition.
Yeah, so Slack will stay open, but Disco will not be open post the competition. So it's important to download all the materials that are going to be on there.
And sorry, Adam, when you say post the competition, so that's all the way to June, not application.
Let me double check on that. I think it's to June, not just after the submissions have gone in. But let me double check. But the best thing to do, I'll notify you. But the best thing to do is also just all the stuff is downloadable on there. Is download it and take a local copy as well. But Slack will stay open, yes, for sure. Yeah, and that's what we want to encourage because we want more collaboration. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Really good. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. All right. Do you have any questions? So people said, can I have a Q&A at the beginning? Okay, so here's let's take a 2-minute Q&A. Has anyone got any questions on anything we've so far covered? It doesn't matter what it is. No?
One question I have is about this competition. Is it about a startup idea or is it about the solution to the problem when it comes to this competition?
Yeah, so the best way, the diplomatic way to answer that is definitely read the application instructions because I'm not a judge. They're the ones who are judging it. And so if you are solving the questions in those application components, that's the best thing to do. It is about, have you got something that solves a problem that is novel and could be possibly used by the city in their 4 categories. And if it's not in one of those 4 categories, that's okay. It's just being really explicit about where it sits. So it's not about throwing a solution at something that may have a problem. The best thing to do is use the data they've got, user interviews to then say, this is a problem the city faces and the partners of the city face and generally what it faces. And here's how I propose to solve it with this innovation. Does that make sense, Hamza?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, cool. No problem. Most welcome. Okay.
I just sort of recall that you mentioned that, it's open to us to form formal partnerships, if you will, like if we, to collaborate more formally. On the flip side of it, say that isn't the case, but the City of Melbourne says, 2 people are addressing the same problem and we would like them to, join up. You know, I mean, do
Ah.
we need to actually present as a boy band or girl band or whatever, or do you do you go solo and then get put into a band?
Yeah, good point. I don't know the answer to that, Rolf, to be honest. I think it's hard to know in advance because the competition is open to anyone. So everyone puts in their applications. I think if you found partners beforehand, you said, hey, actually, we should collaborate together and submit a joint application, that would be pretty powerful. Especially noting that in the application. But I don't know if they will take that inside. But Hendry, can we make a note of that? That would be really good to ask them specifically to consider that. I'll come back to you, Rolf, on that one. Great question. Yeah. Brian, did you have one?
I did. I realized that this is a two-stage competition, right? So we have to get to the pitch night. And so the application is only designed to get us in the door to the pitch night. Do you know how many people how many like pitches they're actually going to let in, or is it anybody that doesn't like, I want to build a rocket to the moon? They're like, we don't want that, so out. You know?
I think I'd have to ask. I think there were 6 that got through to pitching.
That was last year, or that's just their target number? So
that was last year, I believe. And so they had 6 pitches on the night. And so 6 groups got through the application process into the pitching.
Okay.
And with the pitching, how much do you, you know, give there? Like what is the return in terms of visibility? Are these pretty high powered judges that are well connected in the startup industry, or is it so bureaucrats and a few prominent startup experts? Or
I actually don't know the answer to that one, Rolf, because I'm not involved in the selection of the judges. I've asked, I am asking do we have the names of the organizations of the judges? And so I should get something back fairly shortly.
Right.
On the City of Melbourne.
You know, I mean, because it'd be pretty foolish to go out there and present as if you were presenting to Google, when as a matter of fact, you're giving a lot. And if you're not selected, you've given a lot, but you know, there's no return.
Yes, yeah. It's a good point, and definitely it's worth. I think once we get through the next stage, it's worth asking about that. I just don't know the answer to those questions. We'll have to ask Maureen, who's running it at the City of Melbourne. But we'll ask them to make sure we see if we can get some data. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. All right, I appreciate this. So we are going to, this is where we're going to land today, the green lean canvas. So a slightly different variation of the one that you may have seen before and what you've done. And we've got our 3 canvases that have been submitted. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do a live version of this today. Okay, cool. So I wanted to run through this super quickly in advance. Is quick pitches. Now, you're going to be asked over and over again to do quick pitches at different points in time. And these are 2 ways to think about your idea and pitch it really fast. And so we're just going to do this very quickly because it's kind of a fun way to do it. So this first one, which is we are X for Y, and the second one is the guide pitch one. We are X for Y. Some investors hate this. Some investors love it. It's depends how well you do it. I'm not a super big fan of it. I think it just can get more confusing than it actually is, but it's used, so it's worth talking about. So basically what you're saying is, hey, we are, imagine the most famous startup company that's doing super well at the moment. Everyone chooses that company. So let's say, I mean, this one's Stripe from a few years ago. Hey, we're Stripe, but for dog kennels, right? So we enable all people who've got dog kennels to have API-driven payment systems. And so that's why you're like, okay. And so what tends to happen with this thing is you're trying to give the person you're talking to a quick picture in their mind of a really successful story, successful company, and then twist it into something that hasn't been applied to it before. So sometimes it works, sometimes it does work quite well. And here's the example, but it only works when you make it super specific. And the reason I put this in is because actually in the lean canvas later, it says, what's your high level concept? It says, what's your X for Y pitch? And so it's worth thinking about. And so one thing here is that the way not to do it is, hey, we're the Google for dog kennels. What does that mean? Like you are great. Google's awesome in many different ways, but I don't know. Are you like a search engine? Do you offer email? Do you do storage? Are you like whatever? It's really hard. But if you say, hey, we're the Google for dog kennels, we index all the information associated with dog kennels that exists. So you know exactly what is the right dog kennel for your dog at whatever time of the year, according to the breed, weight, and age. Ah, okay. You take all this weird information that exists in dog kennels and you enable me to find the most perfect dog kennel for my wonderful pooch, who I'm very worried about when I go on holiday. Ah, okay, I get it. I literally, the dog kennel thing just came up to me. So, but that's kind of what it means. Then it works because you're saying something specific. Okay. I tried to do this yesterday or the day before for ION, which is the Internet of Energy Network, and I came up with it. It didn't work. We are zero for low carbon energy. We make new energy accounting easy, transparent, and data rich, so companies don't have to worry about what they are buying. It didn't really work for me. Like, I was trying to get to a accounting thing. Zero is really great, but it didn't really work. So you know what? That's okay. Doesn't work for me. Might work for you guys. Anyway, it's worth having up there. Second one, here's the Gaddy pitch from Anthony Gaddy, who lives in Melbourne. He's a very fantastic marketing and entrepreneur, wonderful guy. He'd say, you know how, a well-known fact that they understand. Well, what we do is some explanation of what you do. And in fact, we already have and some validation point. Now, when I've been in a pinch and someone said, get up on stage and pitch this now, or pitch this in 2 minutes, I always use this one without a shadow of a doubt every time, because it's just the easiest one to remember and you can do it in 30 seconds. So you know how it's expensive to deliver furniture to your home, and sometimes when it arrives, it doesn't work in the room. Well, what we do is show you exactly what it looks like and how it fits, and then give you it in a flat pack so you can carry it on the roof of your car. In fact, we've shown that people all over the world can make any space in their house useful and fun with just our products. Who's that?
That's IKEA.
It is IKEA, exactly. And so you get it immediately what they do, because they're solving the pain point, the problem. They're showing you exactly what they do in simple terms, and they've shown some traction of how they do it. Okay. So we're not going to break into groups. We're going to do this live right now. Who wants to do a lightning pitch? And give it a go. Choose either one. I'm X for Y or a quick Gaddy pitch.
I'm going to go with the Gaddy pitch.
All right, Brian, you're up.
So,
you got, we'll do 45 seconds.
Okay, you know how green energy today is solar and batteries and offshore wind? Well, you know what we do is attach silent wind energy to urban environments. In fact, we've already reviewed the last 99 years worth of failures to identify the factors why they failed and not repeat their mistakes.
Okay, cool. That was good. That was 10 seconds. That's amazing. Can you just do it one more time a little bit slower?
You know how green energy today is solar and batteries and offshore wind? Well, what we do is attach silent wind energy in urban environments. In fact, what we've done is we've reviewed the last 99 years worth of failures in this technology to identify the factors why they failed and not repeat their mistakes.
Ah, great. Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you. That's brilliant. The only thing I would change as a piece of quick feedback is the problem at the beginning. Because the problem at the beginning is the last bit didn't feel like it connected to the problem. It was the problem that vertical wind farms have been around for ages, but no one's using them.
Okay.
But they make so much sense because they work when the sun is out. Well, well, what we've done is we've solved all those problems like we don't use them. So you guys should totally invest right now. Yeah, awesome. Loved it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. David, you up next?
Yes, I go with the first version.
Okay.
Elliott is Tesla Powerwall for retail and hospitality, making green and cheap energy accessible, minus the cost for installation or the requirement for approval from your landlord.
Oh, okay. So, say that once again.
Elliott is the Tesla Powerwall for retail and hospitality, making green and cheap energy accessible, minus the cost for installation or the requirement for approval from your landlord.
Ah, cool. Okay. So you're the Tesla. Okay. You're the Tesla Powerwall so it's a battery for hospitality?
Yes, and retail.
And retail. Okay. So, we are, okay, cool. So we're the Tesla. So I'm just trying to work through this in my mind. So when you say we're the Tesla Powerwall for hospitality, is it because, so do you when you go to the what we do, is it you provide a service arrangement? We don't sell hardware, we give them a service subscription or something like that?
We're open to both business models. We haven't nailed it down yet. Depends on who the customer is going to be.
Yeah, okay. Okay, brilliant. So okay, cool. I get it now. That makes sense. Thank you, David. That's good. So the challenge with the we are X for Y thing is that you want, I'm struggling with this one a little bit because I'm trying to think about, like, you want something in the first one, which is a stunning company that then is twisted into that next sector. So we are what Tesla has done for households, we do for the hospitality industry. What I mean by that is what Tesla Storage has done for households, we do for the hospitality industry, which is they provide and then you might say the second one, you say, well, the activity that relates to X, we provide storage solutions specifically for hospitality, because they have different problems than households do, and something like that, because we've got to get nice and specific. So you want to say, hey, because what you're painting there in the picture in mind is really nice. Like, oh yeah, I see Tesla Powerwalls all over the place. They're amazing. People love those things. Oh, you guys are doing this for hospitality because you're solving these other problems. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, I get it. That's brilliant. Yeah. Does that so it's trying to make it really specific on the who that X is for, because Tesla does so many different things, from virtual power plants to, to Model X's. It's like we are the Tesla storage solution, but we do it we're a Tesla storage solution for residents, but we do it for hospitality. Does that make sense? To try and make it a little bit more, make them feel excited about that first one.
Okay.
Cool. I love it. Thank you. Anyone else who wanted to do one? Yeah, Hamza. And hold on.
Yeah.
Off you go.
Having micromobility, making micromobility accessible is third on the priority of Melbourne 2050 initiative. Well, we found that the biggest issue with micromobility is that nobody is aware of the current laws, and people are not aware how to use maps, and it's very haphazard. So what we are doing is we are preparing a proposal by interviewing people, looking at the data, doing our desktop research, and also doing our own experience of micromobility to come up with recommendation to solve the core issues around safety.
Awesome. So that one will have to condense and cut down a bit, and to make it a little bit clearer. So I get what you're saying there. So you'd say, how micromobility is on the top, how micromobility is top agenda for the city government, but they're also, you see these things lost everywhere across the city, something like that. Well, what we do is we have what you actually do. Like, what is the product? Is it a software? Is it hardware? Is it something that's specific in there? That's what you want to say in that, well, what we do. It's not we're studying this. You can say, you got to hit them with the actual thing that they would buy. If they said, cool, here's $4 million for your seed round. What do I get? And then, in fact, you say, well, in fact, our initial preliminary research has shown that 85% of people who ride a scooter would benefit from this and are prepared to pay, $20 a month for it. Something like that. Yeah. Very cool. All right. I've got two hands up, then we'll have to call it that because we're going to move to the next things. But so Rolf and then Danielle.
Yeah. Well, this is too tempting. So I have a crack because I like your feedback. Okay. I'm going again with how.
Okay.
Are you one of the companies that turned from green washing to green hushing? Just to be clear, are you concerned about your journey to net zero? Well, GreenerX has developed proven solution to surface reliable data, data which you then can use to tell your story of your journey with confidence, and that's it.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, fantastic. Very nice. So that was really clear. The feedback for the first bit on the you know how is give them something really emotive and easily understandable in their current conditions. So I know this one because we work on this. So you know how corporations.
The ACCC has hit
that's right.
XYZ with
Yes.
a $6 million fine and intervention order by ASIC for
That's
green
right.
washing. You don't want to be one of those.
That's right, exactly. So you know how the ACCC is cracking down on greenwashing, and other companies are starting to do this thing called green hushing, where they don't even talk about the great work they're doing. Well, what we do is we provide a platform, so you give them the specifics of what it is, that is data rich and provides full transparency on what your data is, so you know what your carbon compliance is and can talk about it with confidence and get an edge on the competition. In fact, we've shown that 9 out of 10 of the companies we work with have had increased shareholder value associated with their ESG metrics at every shareholder meeting they've had since they implemented our solution. Something like that.
You're hired. You're hired.
Yes, so there you go. Now you can't give it
looking
complete.
for a job.
That's right. Thank you. But the thing is that on that last one, you got to give it. It's got to be relatively real, as in we can't make up the statistics. But you can also say, like, of the people we've spoken to in the industry, so one thing you can say from your customer research is, like, if you've spoken to say 5 CEOs of companies that are involved in this, and you say, in fact, 4 out of 5 CEOs, this is their number one thing that keeps them up at night. That's a really powerful sort of statement.
Well, you can, sorry, and I'm hogging the floor now, but like 22% actually have stopped reporting on their journey. So that green hushing is actually happening. So, just bring the enough there that the guy says, like, fuck, this should be my number one problem.
That's right. Yeah, great.
GreenerX Services already has a solution for me, and will help me tell the story to the board with confidence and ultimately shareholders, etc. So
yeah, actually, and that's what in the in fact bit you'd want to have in that in fact bit. In fact, 95% of our customers feel more confident going to boardrooms using our software. Something like that. Brilliant. Thank you, Rolf. Okay, quickly, we're going to Danielle, and then we'll move on.
Mine's kind of similar. You know how a bunch of corporate businesses have carbon emission pledges, but most employers love to work from home? Well, what we do is we tailor gamified carbon reduction programs for employees, and we align activities to greenhouse gas standards for reporting. In fact, the market shows that people feel more empowered about climate change when they believe that they can make a difference.
Ah, brilliant. Fantastic. Okay, awesome. I would dial up a little bit those, dial up the impact of those statements either side. So the first one would be, do you know how it's almost impossible for employees to understand their carbon impact, whatever it might be, like dial up that. And in fact, but 22% of employees will do better, blah, blah, blah for that. Cool. Your product was really good. And then in fact, you want to say something about what you have done. In fact, our product has shown to be our product has shown to have a net promoter score, which is 5x what our closest competition would be. Something like that. So you want to give them, in fact, 100% of HR managers employ our software above other competition because XYZ, something like that. And relate it, if you can relate that, in fact, to your initial customer, especially that person. So maybe it's the HR manager in a company, if it's about employee retention or something like that, it'd be great to say, in fact, 82% of the HR managers we speak to are now taking this as their top priority and using our software.
Melbourne City Council might even pay you to stop your operations because they would hate your idea.
One way of doing it.
Promoting working from home for Melbourne City Council.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, but like all of
It's
this
gonna happen.
Exactly.
People are doing it on the sly though. They're taking in their team members' passes and scanning them all in. This is what I see on Reddit, on the Melbourne Reddit.
Yeah, absolutely. It totally happens. So okay, super. Brilliant work. Well done. Thank you for all jumping in. All right. I really appreciate you guys doing that. That's excellent. All right, let's look at the timing. Great. Let's get to Lean Canvas. This is what we're going to spend our most of our time on today. The shortest, quickest version of your business plan. The Green Lean Canvas is many iterations. This is not a static thing. You've got to keep refining it. Okay, so here's what's important about this competition. You've got to show your impact. So I call it the Lean Green Mean Machine Canvas. Actually, it should just be the Green Lean Canvas. Let's get some real impact metrics in there as well. And you've got to show your potential scalability. So get some metrics in to support your approach. So we've done idea generation. We've now done some synthesis down with the value proposition. So we've done what's the big problem, what's the potential solution fit, and now we've done the value proposition canvas. Then we start to pull it together. It's important at this stage to check in. Normally we're doing this when we've gone out and done a lot of customer interviews, is are you still on track towards your North Star? So the North Star canvas at the beginning was, what do I want to create for the world? And it's easy to get off track as you make it smaller. But if you just go back and check in, it's a really good thing to say, okay, well, I'm at stage 5, which is the tiniest version, but actually it does still fit towards my North Star. Okay. We sent this out before, so we're not going to show it here, which is how to do the Lean Canvas. So have a look at that from the links that are shared. You'll see this anyway. But what's really important is you're taking your work from the value proposition canvas and placing it into Lean Canvas. So it is not about having the most comprehensive version of your business. It's trying to get the most distilled version of what you think the best version is right now. There will be gaps, and it's really hard if you can't identify exactly who your market is and who your customer is, because it's going to be really real challenges because you're trying to do it for them in a really structured way. But just get a first glance. Pains and gains, customer pains and gains in the value proposition is where you need to start, because then it provides you how you create the value. It should be coming from testing. So if you've gone out and done some testing already, that's the bit that should refine it as you're moving through this. And what then is really important is getting some metrics on what you heard from your customer interviews. What I mean by that is when you've gone out and tested and said, hey, what was the last time you were super frustrated with this? What was the last time you were super frustrated with parking in Melbourne? People say, everything's too expensive and I can never find a car parking space at the first point. And that's the most, actually, I don't care about paying the money. I just can never find a parking space. Then a metric would be for your app that finds parking spaces is number of available parking spaces at any given time that's accurate. So you want a metric in there. What is your key metric of success? And what that means is important to you as your company. You can show that that is true, and to your investors that they know it's going in the right way, like you're getting traction and you're moving in the right trajectory, and for your customers, success. So what I mean by that is, I'm a customer. I pay the subscription to you guys to find my parking space every day. And every day I find a parking space within 2 minutes. I'm a happy customer. I keep paying you. Okay. So this is kind of wrapped up into the 3 canvases wrapped up into one here. We are not doing business model canvas in this because it's a bit too far down the line. But business model canvas then the Lean Canvas was created from that. So we get rid of key partners and change customer relationships. And what we're putting in here is 4 different things. Your unfair advantage. So your unfair advantage is critical because it's like, what do you bring that no one else can bring to the problem? So your cousin, you're doing solar and your cousin works for Tesla or something. I don't know, your cousin works in the head of solar for Tesla. Okay, that's a pretty unfair advantage. We've got access to all this stuff. Solution here is pretty easy. You're just mapping your solution to your problem rather than your problem to your solution. And then key metrics, what we talked about just then. What are those key things that you need to showcase or show that you're doing really well? Here's what's important, this bit here. The value propositions come from your value proposition canvas. So you remember here's the square on the left and the circle on the right. So that's where you start. Start with your value proposition canvas and stick this into the Lean Canvas. So it's very tempting to go immediately to the value, to like writing out your value proposition in the middle and then your solution, and then go, oh, customers and problem, we'll sort that out later. Start with this. It really is the best place because it's the engine that drives the growth. Okay, cool. Here's a standard lean canvas. I'll get to the next one. We'll work through that. Okay, but the key bit is this is a standard lean canvas. I put in here, just cut and paste the green ones in. This is where they go from your previous one. So you can literally take them out of the ones you've already done and stick them in here. Here is the green lean canvas, the more adapted version for what we want to do here. Now, the reason I put this in is because City of Melbourne's looking for impact metrics. And so we just put this in and I've adapted it so it's got specific impact metrics in the bottom. It's exactly the same on the top as this one. And the cost structure and revenue is over here as well. We've just added 2 more components, which is environmental unintended consequences and social unintended consequences. And I've made these bigger because you want to show your benefits more than your consequences, because you should be showing high environmental benefits and high social benefits. Now, I grade these out here because it's important to get this stuff correct first. To get the top level correct first, because it's very hard to nail down into cost structures and metrics until you know what your activities are and what your, I mean the underlying metrics on what you're actually doing as the business. Okay, so when you start this, start with over here, your green on customer segments. Who are your target customers and who are your early adopters? So who are those very first early adopters? What are the characteristics they have? Your target customer might be everyone that drives an EV in Victoria, but your early adopters might be young parents who are dropping off their kids at school and having to drive more than 200 kilometers to work, whatever it might be. Okay, you're trying to narrow it down to be the very, very specific version. And then go over to your problems. Here are the problems, the top 3 problems that customer has. And how are those problems being solved today? And on Justin Wilcox's video, he says, how are customers' problems being solved today in a way that totally sucks, that is not awesome? So I'm sending PDFs and Excel sheets to someone for an energy reading. That's rubbish and kind of annoying and difficult for everyone. So what are the existing alternatives? Then we come back into here. What's your unfair advantage? Something that can't be bought or copied. Easily bought or copied. So we hold the patent for this, or we know everyone in this industry because I'm the chairperson of the PKIT body or whatever it is. And then your channels. So what's your path to customers? How are you going to get to them? Is it that you are going to put out Google ads? Are you going to attend industry events? Whatever it might be. Then we can move to your high level concept. And this is where we've updated it a little bit. So this, they say here, put your X for Y. I've actually said, put in your X for Y with your activity. You can also do the Gaddy pitch if you want in here, but this is a super high level concept. It's going to be very, very easy to articulate. And then one single clear, compelling message of why you're different, the value proposition. So this is obviously in the center, and this is built from understanding your gain creators, pain relievers, products and services in your value proposition canvas. I do like this one. I said a good UVP gets inside the head of your customers and focuses on the benefits your customers derive, the benefits they get after using your product. All right. And then you've got your problems already. What is one of the solutions for each of those problems that you provide in your product? Then list the kinds of numbers that tell how your business is doing. You don't have to put the actual numbers in here. You know, we've sold 25 air conditioners. What you'd say for this is our number here is amount of air conditioners sold per request or per inbound marketing sale request, or number of air conditioners deployed across the city per high-rise apartment building, whatever that metric is that says actual success. Okay. Any quick questions on this so far? All right. I think what we're going to do now. Yes.
Is that for ourselves, or is that something that is part of our submission?
This is to generate some of the understanding for your submission.
Okay.
Yeah. So the idea is that you're actually doing this to kind of help clarify your approach in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So, Henry, do you have your random generator ready?
Yes, I have it. Yes.
The moment of the big
Okay.
reveal. We're probably
Okay.
overselling this.
Okay. So I click my random number generator and it's number one.
Okay. And who is number one?
Number one is Brian.
Brian. Okay. Random number generator is number one. It's hard when there's three to generate a random number from. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you, Henry. Okay, Brian. So give me a sec, you guys. I'm going to bring this up. We're going to do
good.
your one.
Okay. I
All
did
right.
the post-its at the bottom, the next one if you want.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm just going to pull this up. All right. Okay. So look, this is also, we're going to spend about 10 minutes doing this. So we're going to do this live all together. And we're trying to do this to respond to feedback, which is let's not do so many breakout groups. Let's try and get it all done together. Brian, thank you very much for submitting it. I also appreciate Caleb and Swan for submitting theirs. Don't worry, we'll have a chance to have a look at yours as well. But thank you. So, but what I want to do here is we'll go through it. And Brian, you can explain first of all what they are from each of the different sections, and then I can give some feedback. We'll also give some peer feedback on it as well. So first of all, thank you very much for bringing it up here. All right, so talk me through it, and let's go customer problems.
Yeah, so the problems is actually the most interesting one that has changed in the last week.
Okay.
I have discovered that there is the ones that have been deployed through the mentoring specifically. I have gotten feedback that there have been numerous pilots, not just the one, Adam, you gave me that feedback, but there have been numerous pilots, and they have all had dismal outcomes. And that was a bit of a shocker for me, because you're going like, well, I'm developing this product, and I know that I think I can make it work, but other people haven't made it work, and that was a bit scary. And so I have identified a whole bunch of very technical reasons why. Literally so these things, next year will be 100 years since the invention of the vertical axis wind turbine. 2025 was originally invented in 1925. And so the Semmelweis reflex is what I'm going to have to overcome for people that are in the know. Semmelweis, for those people who don't know the mental model, that's the physicians don't want to wash their hands or wash their surgical instruments between operations because it's just a pain in the ass and it doesn't really stop contagion. And we knew about contagion for years, but doctors didn't want to adopt it. They didn't want to change their way of doing things. So I list that one. It's misinformation. The Semmelweis reflex is we've already done this. So when I'm talking to people in Melbourne, and I'm expecting anybody on this innovation thing to already be aware of the studies that have been done and failed there. I can go into why. Yeah.
No, carry on. You keep going, and then we'll.
Okay, so we have poor historical performance of the ones that have been delivered. Historically, there's also just I found a 2007 paper that talked about the lack of guidelines for installing these. And then we also have the market is heavily incentivized for solar and batteries. And so all of those are problems that I see that it has to overcome to make this, for somebody to go, I want this. I have overcome like the design problems that other people have had. So I'm happy to say that like I'm doing something that hasn't been done before. And not only that, but I know why the people before me have failed. And that's when humanity's been doing it wrong for 100 years and coming along and going, I think I can do it differently. And the body is strewn with companies behind me that have all gone out of business. That's a bit intimidating, but what the hell, right?
Okay.
So that's that. The solutions that I'm planning on doing, I've had a call this week with the Smart Energy Council, talking to them about, and the person I spoke with was very accommodating and was happy to help and started making introductions right away. But they instantly become a cost center. So I have to pay them either $3,500 or $6,500 a year to be a member of their little thing and attend their, not to mention the time and the, going to the trade shows and everything else. So I got to figure that out. Creating a small pilot is one of the solutions to actually prove that this thing works. I had a conversation this week with a mate who happens to be a fabricator of composites. I just happen to have that person in my network. And when I called him and said, hey, do you want to build a wind turbine with me? He said, yes, basically. It's coming over on Thursday morning. So it's not a yes, yes, yes yet, but it's going to be a yes. So that's great, because I've realized that I need to use not carbon fiber, but like a glass fiber. And that's a pretty specialized type of manufacturing. And he happens to be an expert at that. So that worked out pretty well.
Brian, can you go to your, so we've done problem and a bit of solution. That's good. Can you go to customer?
Yeah. So in terms of customers, where is it on this page? So we've got the actual like homeowners or building owners. And then this morning I was told, you should really reach out to these developers, commercial developers who are building lots of homes, because you can sell a lot in one go. And they need to get an innovation green star rating thing for innovation, and this might qualify for that. Mm-hmm. And then the other piece that's a big part of this is that this stuff isn't sold directly. They don't order it from me directly. There's an intermediate distribution, people like Middies or things like that, who sell solar and all of the fittings and everything else, and people already have commercial accounts. So ultimately, they're the ones who have to buy the material and either inventory it or place orders from me. So there's like a distribution layer that I have to sell to. But the good news here in Australia is that there's actually not a whole lot of those. And if I can get a couple of those on board, then I've already got commercial relationships with every single person that does the installs and whatnot. So I have to create that demand, but the actual customer who's buying it, I have to convince some, like a Middies or somebody like that. And there's many, and figure out that. But then in terms of early adopters, government needs to be an early adopter, or this thing is probably dead on arrival.
Okay. Okay.
Cool. Yep.
So then this is good. So then, and flip to your value proposition in the middle.
Yeah, so my value proposition is there's a huge number of technical factors that influence the performance of these designs and things like that. And what I'm hoping to do as part of the clean energy, this Open Innovation Melbourne is challenge the city council to come up with a set of, this is our mean average. That is a thing that works best in this environment. This is our environment, use like the last 25 years of weather data and maybe updated every 25 years, hopefully. So it's not onerous, but it's, and use that to design a perfect one for Melbourne, and literally just call it the Melbourne model. And if I want to sell one in Sydney, I will have a Sydney model, because they have different average wind speed calculations. So in terms of the value proposition, there's no uncertainty. If you're in Melbourne, you know that this is designed for Melbourne. This is the Melbourne model. It's already optimized for your city.
Okay.
Which means you don't have to become like an aerodynamics expert to do all the analysis, and it's simple, much simpler.
Okay, cool. We're going to go through and I'll come back to some comments in a second. All right, brilliant. Thank you. Existing alternatives, solar only. That's the only. Yeah.
Or they can't participate in the clean energy, like me. I can't get solar on my roof.
Yeah.
That's what started this, so, or not enough solar on my roof to make it worth somebody's time to come out and install it.
Okay, cool. You've mentioned your unfair advantage, which is your network and your buddy. You've also got technology, twins, and robotics is your background. Is that's
my background? Yeah.
Okay, cool. Channel.
So the simulations of these things are actually very they're compute intensive, and any sort of manufacturing, labor is a huge cost. So being able to do digital twins for simulations of the flame before you do it, and not having to build the machine in cyberspace first, and then being able to do robotic fabrication for a lot of this, and then also the machine learning simulations and things like that are all within my wheelhouse.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Awesome. In terms of metrics.
Yeah. I have more in my notes on that. That was like the last one. So sales by market segment. So, is this going into existing systems? Is this going into new systems? And then I think the most significant metric is just the performance, the actual performance that these things are able to generate. And that's a tough one, because there's potentially like anywhere from probably dozens to maybe 30 plus different companies that make inverters that I might run into. And so getting the data out of those inverters is actually a very onerous technical, they might be behind firewalls and blah, blah, blah. Or do I build my own little device that connects to the person's Wi-Fi and phones home and sends me data, but then it also draws power out of the system and has a, another installation thing and a cost and everything else. So getting the performance data and believing the performance data, the 2007 paper that I read, most of the people plugged it directly into their solar bus, and so they couldn't even distinguish the DC bus for their solar. They couldn't even distinguish the wind from the solar. They just said it outputs power, you know.
Right. Okay.
And so that'll be I think a hard metric to get, but the goal initially is to work with like schools, government agencies, put specific metering on those so that we have data that says, yes, this is the ROI that you're going to expect. And I have to say, you know, I expect it to come in equivalent to solar, but also the material, the fact that it's going to be fabricated out of, you know, circular waste streams and things like that, is a factor, you know, for it's an optical, you know, virtue signal, green virtue signaling kind of thing. So
okay, cool. That's awesome. All right, let's get into that because this is really nice. This bit underneath. So, quick on the cost structure. So some tech development, paying for it, materials and fabrication. Is there anything else on cost structure for just the whole business?
There's the industry groups, yeah, the memberships, the trade shows, the marketing, things like that. So
okay, and this is just this initial first stage of the product. Like we're not talking about building a factory at any point at this point, or
I'm planning on using the Manufacture Center, the Deacon one in Warren Ponds initially. And I actually don't know what the costs are there. I think they depends how much floor space you need and all of that. But they specialize in you know, composite fiber manufacturing, so it should be a really soft place to start.
oh, that's great. That's awesome.
And
then on revenue structure, what is a revenue structure? Are people buying hardware? Or are they buying a subscription? Are they buying a lease? Or what are they buying?
I mean, I think it would be they would be buying just like you would buy solar panels.
But there's a few different ways they do that. Like, you know, you can
And I'm hoping to, you know, I guess you could say that I haven't gotten to that stage yet, but when I get to that stage, it's how are people doing solar? I want to do all of those and any new ones that solar isn't doing, maybe those two. So in terms of the financing models, I mean, there's companies that'll just put solar and batteries on top of your house. There's certainly opportunities for energy companies because people don't realize energy companies, the price for an energy company, even though most people pay a flat price for their power, the energy company's price actually changes every 5 minutes. And you know, where that energy comes from, they're already doing complex tolling agreements and things like that. So for an energy company to have a customer with a wind turbine on your farm actually is going to reduce your energy costs at those times because energy coming out of batteries is more expensive.
Okay. Yeah, cool. All right, brilliant. And then so environmental unintended consequences, so recycling of blades, severability and right to repair. So you might end up with in the future some waste issues. Is that right?
So recycling of blades is an issue for big ones because they're just so big you can't even take them away. And when they hit end of life, what do you do with them? You just leave them on the ground. You know, and a couple of decades from now, we just have lots of these things. The little ones, I've been a fan of right to repair, the ability to repair things and to engineer for sustainability for 15 years at least. And so that's just a factor in all of my designs. But any sort of so serviceability, theoretically, if these things are designed correctly, they should last 100 years.
Okay.
They're serviced and that sort of thing.
And then for benefits on this, you can create these out of waste streams. I'm just conscious of time, so I'm gonna waste streams. You can use solar or other green energy to create them. Is that right? And lower carbon footprint.
Correct. Yeah, there's parts of the material I need to make in the later stages of the business where I need to use high energy manufacturing, and in that case, I would only be using green energy to do that.
Okay, cool.
So and hopefully green energy that I've generated myself would be even cooler, but we'll see.
Yeah, and then lower carbon footprint than solar.
Yeah, I haven't got.
Is there a number you've got on this? Like the ideally we get down to a number like.
No, we haven't even gotten to that stage yet because you need to work backwards from how tall is it going to be?
Okay.
That's, you know, you start there and you can work backwards. And that goes back to your question, Danielle, until I have like what are the numbers we're going to use for Melbourne? Because that's the measure that anybody else who wants to come into the market needs to compare against. So my initial goal is to import state-of-the-art ones from China, where 70% of the micro wind is already deployed in the world. So they're ahead in every way, bringing in their rotors, but then manufacturing the blades here, benchmarking us in a friendly, you know, cooperation against China. What can we build here versus what they're building there out of our waste streams? And so using recycled glass, recycling, you know, soft plastics, these types of things and fabricating these into wind turbines,
Okay, great.
blades. So, but yeah, I will get there, Daniel. I will be able to do that at some point when it takes a little bit more shape.
Okay, cool. And then social unintended consequences, maybe a bit of noise, some optics underperformance, something like that. But anything else on social?
I think, you know, there's unintended consequences. Yeah, could be noise. You know, they aren't going to be probably completely, again, it depends on the size. You can make them completely silent, but they don't perform as well.
Okay. But then the social benefits.
So here's the most interesting one for me. We are one hailstorm away from solar panels not working. Okay. So the IEC 61215 is the standard for measuring solar panels. They fire the size of a gold coin, 25 millimeter ice ball at a speed of 83 kilometers an hour at a solar panel. Okay. And if it doesn't crack the panel, you're in the market.
Yeah.
You pass. Now, that compares to the largest hail ball that has been recorded in Melbourne in Fern Gully in 2022. And that happened to be one that a Bureau of Meteorology employee happened to find and test. So there might have been larger ones, but that's the one that they found and tested. And anybody want to guess how big that one was? 25 millimeters is the standard. 160 millimeters. So an order of magnitude larger. And so all of the solar that's being deployed, you know, it's a risk, you know. I realized that when I realized that, I went, oh my God, you know, like this is substantial. And it's not like you can even protect them. You know, they need to be facing.
Okay, cool. That's really good. Okay. All right. What we're gonna do is let's spend 5 minutes on a super quick feedback rounds. But I'd also really like other people to provide some feedback. Like, this is not about me. This is about everyone here as well. So Brian, thank you very much. There's a lot of work in here. So this is very cool. Okay. So I'm just going to give my top level thoughts, which would be the customer so the problem here feels like it's actually, the problem feels like it's actually just the misinformation, the perception, and the understanding of these things that is the massive barrier right now. That they work overseas, that China's got them, that other people have got them, but we just don't have that understanding of it here, which feeds back to my customer, which I'm wondering then, is the business actually a software business that's designing these things and proving that they work in this initial phase? Because we can't actually build it. But I'm thinking about the customer is, we've got to link the customer and the problem closer together. So if the problem is that the solar only works when the sun is shining and storage is expensive, these things fill that gap, and a customer then becomes someone who is in distribution. A customer is someone who wants to have reliable solar energy, reliable renewable energy when the sun isn't shining. I'm trying to figure out whether the business is actually, we're talking about the business at its level of getting the product down there, or we're talking about this business, the business right now, which is solving the actual problem, which is, if Melbourne's going to be a center of production for these things, we've got to overcome that, and therefore we need a great software system that models this for people. This is just a question.
We only have to develop one that works here for us, and then we can worry about the other cities and other places later. But we have plenty of wind energy here. That's not disputed. We're just not harnessing it well, and I guess, no, it's not a software business. The software components to this, the simulations and things like that, I'm using all open source tools, and I'm planning on just putting that up on GitHub. And so the software is something that any student that's studying, you know, aerodynamic airflows, green energy, I mean, this is all taught in the schools here. Kids design these things all the time. They just don't make it out into the real world. We have to overcome how do you connect this thing to the grid for them to make any meaningful impact?
Great. Okay, cool. And so then I would say just something on then, the value proposition that sits in the middle, because if we get these bits right, everything else falls into place. Is the value proposition is that your company, that Windja creates, that manufactures creates economies and provides jobs in places to manufacture this stuff that is specific for that city, because the city has specific wind dynamics or specific grid dynamics. I'm trying to get is that the fact?
So,
are cities that different?
You should be very much designing for some of the things right now is just if figuring out which solar panels you want and which inverter you want is hard. This is almost impossible. I mean, the amount of data you have to enjoy chewing through is absolutely ridiculous, and it's really complex airflows and things like that. What we need to do is just go, this is the best one we have based on whatever model the city ends up adopting for its performance criteria. It says, this is our mean average. This is the one that's going to perform best based on these numbers.
Yeah.
And being able to not only simulate that in a virtual, cyber world, but being able to, and having the simulations that are, again, people have an AI machine learning rig, they should be able to do this. 20 years ago when we did so much research here 20 years ago, we just didn't have the compute power. There were some other problems, like the student who wanted to model one of these, they didn't get to design their own airfoil. They got to pick one of the existing airfoils. Well, those airfoils are designed for propellers. They work great on HAWTs in high altitudes because you have less than 1% turbulence. You put them in an urban environment with 10% turbulence, they actually perform significantly worse.
So, okay.
They just completely fall apart.
So brilliant. So this is a very complex problem trying to solve.
It's very technical, and I have to simplify all that to just if you're in Melbourne, this is the one you want.
Yeah. So I think then and then we'll open up. I know Rolf's got a question. I know Dave have one as well. Maybe the way to simplify it for this competition, for this next stage, is to say, what would be the first smallest business I could build that would get paid to do something here, with manufacturing being done at Manufutures? Because what it feels like to me is that we have so much uncertainty on whether it works, what the performance is, whether it can work in Melbourne, yet there is a problem that is solar goes off and storage is expensive.
Yeah.
And it feels to me that it's like, you're right on early adopters government, but this is a gut feeling, is like the misinformation. You've got all this stuff. Why aren't we doing it? Makes tons of sense. And we've got all these amazing environmental and social benefits on the bottom are excellent that the city is looking for. Just pay $250K for this incredible software that's going to design it for your city. Oh, I'm not sure, but like, it feels like the first stage in the business is this.
I'm going to give that software away. I'm not even going to. I don't have to pay for that. That should be open source, and yeah, it's not.
I'm thinking about this in the context of the competition, of where you can, what's the tiniest next step to solve the problems that sit underneath it. Anyway,
Yeah. I mean, the materials that are used for this is a very important problem, because the weight and strength ratios and all of those things have dramatic performance benefits, and also, reliability and all of those. So there's that part isn't simple. Not everybody knows how to go and fabricate glass composites and things like that. In my particular case, I started this because I was developing an AI platform that could run a company, and I just wanted to build a product to prove it. And this seemed like a no-brainer for me. So this is a great opportunity to, run a business at a lower cost, because I'm not planning on putting a lot of people to work. I'm going to put a lot of robots to work. That's straight up the honest answer there. And so that is not a social benefit here at all. I don't want to, if I have more than 5 employees, it is probably, it's too many. So,
all right, cool. We'll park that for now, but that's, okay, cool. Thank you, Brian. Let's open up the other guys. We've got another couple of minutes. Rolf.
Well, first of all, where you had me fully engaged was when you explained the overlay with local conditions. And in my mind, that's your real strength, where, I know this is a competition, but where I wanted you to do well. My question is, and I've written to you in a direct chat, just to offer to have maybe a one-on-one conversation, because I'm really interested in your measuring problem, and Grunex Services specializes in that, and I would love to understand your issues and have a quick chat, really.
Sure. I'll follow up with you afterwards. Definitely, we can go into dive deep. I like to do that. Danielle, you had a great point. So Arduinos are actually really power intensive. I would use an ESP32, which is lower than that. And if you look behind me, I have a whole, that's the kind of stuff I know how to do. But somebody still has to install it. You have to put it on the Wi-Fi. If it isn't working, there's just a lot of pieces. Not anything that you can reduce the problem and not have it, that's better. And so that's an unknown. But some of the mentor feedback was, why can't you just go build anemometers and put them up people's roofs and measure it? And the reality is that even that wouldn't produce a good measure. It would tell you what your wind speed is, but it wouldn't tell you what your power output is, because those don't measure the gusts. And they did anyway. There's just the measuring criteria for this is a very tough problem. but you have to realize that when you add a lot of them together, the measurement problem actually gets a lot easier.
So what we're doing right now is we're actually diving a little bit too deep.
Okay.
What we're meant to be doing on this canvas is meant to give us the business picture.
Yeah.
So what I think this is one of the challenges, been something that's very complicated and it's still very much an R&D stage, is where do we drive the what's the initial revenue going to come from, for what are they paying for?
This should be financed like solar panels. Again, I'm just going to keep saying that it's cost competitive with solar panels today.
But what I mean is on this one, Brian, is like in this next stage, let's look at the next 3 months.
Yeah.
Someone who's going to pay for solar panels going to pay for operations in the next 3 months. I'm
not in a situation where my burn is going to burn out in 3 months, so it's not.
No, it's okay. I mean it more from a kind of like fundamentals perspective. Is this if we're going to, don't worry about the performance metrics and anything we don't know. We're just going to assume you can build these things and assume that it's...
Yeah, correct. The material markets that I'm approaching. So what I'm looking to do is demand generation for the materials to make them. The combined market size of the materials is actually $500 billion a year.
So this is kind of
I'm fine. Like that part. This is just a proof. I just need something to create a demand for the materials, so I can be manufacturing the materials. Because if like Ford wants to come to me and use the new material in their new EV car or their new EV motor or something like that, they aren't going to go. You can't go from 0 to Ford. You have to have like some intermediate step to do that. And so the VAWTs can be that intermediate step.
Cool. So this is, as you said, this is like Elon wanted to go to Mars. You have to have electric vehicles on Mars, so he builds the Roadster.
Correct. Very much following, that sort of mindset.
So the only thing I would say then is, what is the lean canvas for the Roadster?
I mean, this is the lean canvas for the Roadster.
Yeah. So what I mean,
I only need to sell 100 in the first year, and that hits my goal.
Yeah, cool.
I sold 100 in the first year. I'm throwing a party. You understand? And 100 at $250 each. It didn't pay the bills, but it did get me to the next step. That lets me go target the moonshot, which is the again $500 billion a year.
Yeah.
By 2030 market.
Yeah, absolutely. And I get that. I think that this is when we're getting there. It's kind of just getting down to that, like, what is that first thing you sell? Like it is the Roadster. It's the
Roadster. The VAWTs are the Roadster. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's the turbine. And so they're buying the turbine. They're buying the software, they're buying everything that runs it. And so the problem then, we have to get rid of all the misinformation stuff. And the problem is actually the grid problem. And so what we're trying to do here is, what I was trying to understand earlier is, are we at one step earlier, which is no one wants this because they don't understand the information, or we say, okay, let's assume they do want it, and we're going to go straight to the actual product, which is the...
Yeah, so I mean, there's
let's forget what the time is actually gone. So we'll do it one more minute, and Hamza's got a question, because this is really good. This is definitely testing our ability to structure down. So Brian, you were going to say something quick?
No, I was just gonna say that there's definitely demand. Like it's just it's how big is the demand. If I can overcome those other problems, the demand is an order of magnitude larger. If I can get it connected to the grid, it's an order of magnitude larger. There's enough like microgrids across Australia that they can't have batteries, like battery big enough. This will deliver energy cheaper than a battery. It will keep the battery charged more often. So that there's not a question about that. It's just a question of whether I can compete on a cost basis with China for manufacturing them, I guess.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Great. Hamza, with a quick question.
Sure. So I just want to point out that when you're building something with new materials, there is always a risk factor, like the safety. If I decide to buy a turbine from you, and especially like, what about the safety measure? It's not going to fall apart. And again, with turbine falling apart, there is a risk of accident. Solar panel.
I totally agree, Hamza. So there are engineering safety standards that are and tests that any material has to pass. It's not like you just say, oh, I think it's safe. There's actually I'm
going to time out on this though, guys, because we're diving too deep. We're still meant to be back at looking at the business. Okay, Hamza's a good point, but we park it for now. Caleb, is there a quick one? And you're on mute.
Oh, sorry, I came off. My one, I was just going to ask a question around early adopters. Could early adopters be people with existing solar panel infrastructure?
Yeah.
And
who
then
want a little more capacity, or maybe one of their solar panels was cracked by a hailstorm and they just don't want to replace it.
Because I imagine there wouldn't be as much infrastructure from the storage and then converting it back into the system, if you kind of had like, I don't know, set up a working
It
model
literally plugs
with
in
an
like a solar
adapter or
panel.
something. Yeah, like
Yeah,
that.
literally. Now the distinction is that you can't just, the rules of the way the grid works, you can't just replace a solar panel with a wind turbine because it impacts their ability to model the grid performance. And the grid currently does not have a checkbox in your application that says I have some micro wind. Micro wind, everybody knows it exists, but it doesn't have like a process for actually putting it on your roof, nor are there safety standards for how to install it. So if you install one and your house gets hit by lightning and it wasn't installed correctly, which it couldn't be because there aren't protocols for installing it correctly today, then and your house burns down, is your insurance company going to cover that? And the answer is no, probably not. So we need to review the safety standards from that angle, as Australia, you know, at that level. So
okay, all right, cool. First of all, let's give a big thank you to Brian for this. It takes a lot to stick this up on screen and have everyone look at it and try and take it apart. Really, okay, cool. So here's the challenge with this stuff. It is really hard to get it back down to something which is the next stage. But Brian, it's an amazing, you've got something there that makes a lot of sense, and it's easy to get stuck on the kind of, okay, where are we at in the business process? Because there's so many things going on in your mind. One of the things that struck me from Caleb's comment actually was on the early adopter is then your unique value proposition is no one else has solved why people don't want these things. And here is the prototype that shows why they do. And it's like, and it is built in, I mean, I didn't really understand why specifically for Melbourne versus Sydney and what the difference would be, but let's not talk about it right now because we're out of time.
Different wind speeds.
Different wind speeds. So it might be that, great. So it can be customized to that specific location.
One design works better at like 6 to 9 meters per second. But once you get over 10, it might actually start going down in performance, or it might keep going up, but only like marginally.
Perfect.
And another one might top out at 12 meters per second.
Time out 1 second. But what it feels like then is in this moment is that initial value proposition is we design these are custom built for the specific location and make it really work. But it is that the product are these prototypes that show how it overcomes all the misinformation, all the stuff that's not working for it. I'm trying to think of like, and then someone pays for that is that early adopter who's already got solar, who has lost their solar through, you know, something that they hate about it. And so maybe there's something there. And what we're trying to do is get that into that initial one where someone will pay some money to do it. But I love it. It's a really awesome link out. So thank you, Brian. All right, cool. Before we head, I'm going to share these after with you around some key, what time is it? We've got 5 minutes. Okay. Thinking about, this is also as you go into writing applications. Now, these have got to be in what, end of next week applications? Is it the end of next week? And so really you should have the drafts written already, ready to go. Thinking about what are the mapping environment? What are the key trends, industry forces, market forces, macroeconomic forces that are impacting upon your business model? And so you can see here, this is actually a business model canvas, but the idea here is what are those other things that sit around you? Now, one of the accelerators I've been through, the first thing they did with us was map your trajectories for an exit. What are the things, what are the tailwinds that will drive your business towards an exit? Increase, like for some of our ideas today, increase transparency on carbon, more litigation, more ACCC problems, blah, blah, blah. All those things are tailwinds to say you need transparency in your carbon management. Really important things to think about. The other part on the metrics is what are the simplified version of those metrics that could really help your business. Now, this comes from, on the right-hand side, this comes from Giant Leap, which says in their investments, they found out on average, some work better than this, is that for every $1 of revenue generated in their portfolio companies, they save a kilogram of carbon dioxide, or they reduce a kilogram of carbon dioxide. Some is more. So their metric is they're not going to invest in anybody, in any company that doesn't save at least 1 kilogram of CO2 per $1 of revenue generated. And it should be more. So it's hard to get to this, but it's really important to think about when you're writing your impact section of the application is what are the specific things you can say about it? And what are those metrics? You might not have the numbers, but for example, you'd say your costs and your revenue. Environmental, what is the tons of carbon dioxide reduced? Or is it tons of avoided landfill? Or is it tons of something per activity? So for every wind turbine that Brian gets installed, for every dollar of revenue that's generated by installing one of those wind turbines, we've shown that it reduces 10 kilograms of carbon dioxide by people using them rather than drawing on the grid at the highest point in time in the afternoon. And so it's trying to get to that metric is really important. For like a regeneration one is how much land is regenerated per dollar made. So I make $10 and 10 hectares of land is now regenerated, whatever it might be. But it's trying to get to that really specific metric. You don't have to have the number, but you have to have what it would look like. And then for social approach, because the city is looking for these social outcomes, is it about access to services? Safety for you, Hamza, is there a safety thing here? That means for every dollar of revenue we generate, we on average save the healthcare system $10 because less people are ending up in accidents. What are those kind of metrics you can pull in? Now, you don't want to draw too much of a long bow on this, but the idea is have something that can give them some bite. And then there's two ways to look at it, direct and indirect. What are the direct outcomes? I'm in a carbon offsetting company, you pay me $1, I plant a tree. Okay, there's a direct benefit there. An indirect benefit is that I pay local people to do the work. Okay, so there's a social indirect benefit as well. So try and think about, hey, direct benefits of my solution are this, this, and this, but indirect benefits are increased job growth in the climate change sector in Melbourne. Underline that bit. This is what the city wants to do, grow jobs in climate and climate tech. It has to be a benefit based on what's being done.
Well, can I jump in there?
Yeah, sure. And just one last thing, if you can put in the method and the data associated with it. Yes, David.
So the city of Melbourne is the city of Melbourne, that's inner suburbs. So there will not be manufacturing happening in the restriction of the city of Melbourne. So my jobs will be created mainly in the outer suburbs or countryside.
That's okay. The way Melbourne is looking at this is the kind of Melbourne is the locus, but it's the sort of region. So like Warren Ponds and Geelong and all those places are kind of also included in this because Melbourne's the sort of the hub part, but they're actually looking at, more broadly. So that's okay.
Sure, thank you.
That's okay. I mean, this is what's happening in general in Melbourne. If you look at what's going on there, the push is for more climate jobs. And so this is just an important part of what they're thinking about. All right. Okay, we are at time. I'm going to just open up very quickly at the end here. Now, I want to say thank you very much, Brian, for putting that out there. Next time, we're going to be doing this. Okay, so we talk about funding and scaling and thriving. We're going to have a climate tech VC join us for a Q&A and have an Ask Me Anything session. So ask me anything in AMA. So please think about some questions, either to ask me or to ask our climate tech VC about what are your questions? Who's getting funded? Why are they getting funded? What are the biggest barriers getting funding? How do I get my thing funded? What stage do I need to be at to even look at VC funding? All those kinds of questions would be great to ask. For next time, any other questions that you guys have for me right now?
One question, these canvases that you're showing, can you recommend some books where we can find these canvases and resources?
Yes, I can. I can also, they're always provided in the participant canvases, so you can use all of those. So yeah, the basic, I mean, this is Ashmore's Lean Canvas and a bunch of fun things from Strategizer.
And just the feedback, can you start writing a blog where you put all of this stuff out? Because I find it very helpful, and North Star Canvas and all of that. And even though I have a huge number of books on startups, these books don't have these canvases. So
yeah, well, this has taken many years of collating, pulling it together. So yeah, thank you, Hamza. I appreciate it. I'm glad it's working for you. Any other quick questions? Rolf has a question.
Just a quick one. Should I, with my application, how far advanced should I be? Like at 80% or? You're not driving us hard enough. Like and that's not good for me. So
yeah, I think, or I don't know, Rolf. I mean, it depends on how just how happy you are what time you want to submit it. Yeah, but these things, it's really good to get someone to review it and
Yeah.
not me. I can't review these, but if someone in your network to review them before they go in.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, David. Thanks. And thanks, Rolf. Anyone else? Any other questions? Okay. By the way, there are no right answers in this stuff.
Yep.
I've written many lean canvases and I've failed a bunch of businesses as well. And I've written no lean canvases and some businesses are going quite nicely. So like this is just, we are all doing the best we can. This is a human experience. So even if nothing happens out of this, or if something happens, it really is part of the journey. And I had a phone call this morning from someone who's going through some challenges with their business, falling apart, not working, blah, blah, blah. And I haven't spoken to him in 2 years. And he just phoned me out of the blue. And he said, you've been through this. What's it like? What do we do? And it was, it's challenging. It's really hard. And it's also really exciting. And so next time we'll talk a bit about that as well, which is how do you stay the course when sometimes it is utterly horrible? And Brian's nodding. And how do you stay the course when it's
Not my first rodeo, and it is, I heard your Google story and I was just going, oh, did he like bring a swimsuit to get in the jacuzzi on the jet that they have? So no, I have my own stories like that. It's a journey.
Yeah, it is. Without being trite, it really is. So,
yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. See you next week for the next one. Thank you all for participating. Much love and gratitude. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
next
Thanks,
week.
Adam. Bye.
Thank you very much, Adam.
everyone.
Great session.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for all the great feedback, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, great
Bye-bye.
stuff, guys. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
I was
Right.
just waiting for your book. Hopefully, you will write one.
If you'll buy
Just
it,
sign me up. Yeah, sign
you're
me up.
fine.
I'm happy to buy it. I'm happy to even sign up for a pre-release right now.
that's a good point.